Jesus of Nazareth was not born into a peaceful world. He was born into a country that was occupied by a brutal authoritarian regime. He was born and raised in Galilee. Galilee was an ethnically diverse and politically volatile part of the Roman Empire. Nearly 90% of Galileans lived in poverty, and there were heavy taxes for the temple, for Rome, and for Herod's building projects. Before Jesus, many rebels rose against Roman rule and were killed. The city of Sepphoris, which was only 4 miles from Nazareth, was burned to the ground following a rebellion around the time of his birth. Authoritarianism is part of the Christian story because it was one man's defiance of it that led to his execution and created a movement. Unfortunately, his movement became vulnerable to authoritarianism itself as soon as it was adopted by the Roman Empire around 313 AD. From then on, Christianity became an identity for some people, rather than a core set of values by which to live. It became a useful identity to get promotions, attention, rewards, and yes, power. Over the centuries, many religious leaders argued about what Christianity meant, parsing words instead of helping others, creating complex church bureaucracies modeled on Roman government, executing people because of a difference of biblical interpretation, and excluding groups by developing Baroque rules to keep certain people in power and others in servitude. Christian acts were often tied to money-making endeavors where you could buy your way into heaven no matter how awful you were in real life. The roots of Christianity, those about hospitality, empathy, and grace, still existed as they do now, but to this day, there is still that tension between the people and the powerful. So I can only speak for myself. I don't think that churches should endorse candidates. I don't think churches should tell people how to vote or who to vote for. I don't believe that churches should affiliate themselves with political parties. I don't care which one. Nor do I believe that churches should affiliate with organizations that associate with political parties. I don't care which one. But I do believe that today's churches and their communities do have a role and a responsibility to be an independent voice, to hold those in power accountable, and to provide moral leadership. And yes, sometimes this does mean wading into the political arena by publicly advocating for policy change and encouraging civic engagement by the community. Unfortunately, it sometimes seems as though that independent voice is silent or it's not loud enough. There can be so many different contributing reasons. Maybe there are people in a congregation who don't want to be divisive by offending someone in their social circle or a generous donor. Maybe there are some cynical people who feel that the politicians will do whatever they want anyway, so why even try? Or maybe people in that church's community have grown complacent because they don't have that much to lose because of their demographics, their connections, or their finances. And to be honest and to be fair, there is also a very real fear that a church or its community could be targeted in some way because of its words or actions. I also want to address another reason, which is that sanctified divide between church and state. In my time here, I have heard multiple times the fear of saying anything that might cross the divide between church and state. I believe very strongly in that divide. I believe it is critical for a democracy. But that silence and that decorum, it hasn't worked. That silence, that abandonment of the playing field by so many polite Christians may have contributed to that line getting pushed further and further back. It has become so blurry that sometimes we cannot even see it sometimes. The Christian nationalism we see around us has blurred that line, and those who still support maintaining that divide will need to engage if they want to claw it back. This isn't something that's going to be resolved by an election, because it's not a Democrat problem and it's not a Republican problem. It's a Christian problem. And even if you say that, oh, these people are not Christians, it doesn't matter. Identifying as a Christian nowadays in this country is hard. Upon hearing it, many people, good and reasonable people, will wonder, so do you want to ban books? Do you want to place the 10 Commandments in every schoolroom? Do you hate gay people? Do you think the earth is about 6,000 years old and flat? So it's going to take Christian effort to solve what is a Christian problem. It will take determined and prolonged Christian effort to counter the image of those who wear crosses on their chests but carry so much anger in their hearts. It is a long game. I know people don't like to hear that, but it is a long game. And fear, fatalism, cynicism, and disappointment are among our greatest threats. So Magnolia UCC is a small player. I understand that. I hear that often. We're small, very, very small. But we are visible, and we are clear about our values. We respect those who speak their conscience. That matters in a world where there is so much distrust, disingenuous wordplay, and frankly, lies. We would love your support to not just continue this work, but to achieve financial independence so we can be the church we want to be and follow that conscience. There's a donation box in the back. You can use our QR code, and Jasper will post the link to donate for those online. We do not need to die to follow the example of Jesus. We shouldn't have to. In our own small ways, we just need to speak and act. And if we don't, then I ask why we are here in the first place.